I'm tired of evil. I'm not going to use violence, no matter who says it.
I had not, before meeting Dr. King, ever taken the option of violence off the table. We are a minority living in the belly of the beast. When Dr. King stepped in, he methodically would look at violence and challenge those who would seek the gun as the solution. Because morally, you cannot defeat the enemy by becoming the enemy.
Cannot defeat the enemy by becoming the enemy. Now, of course, the one and only Harry Belafonte talking to Pulitzer Prize-winning author Taylor Branch in the 2018 HBO documentary about civil rights icon Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Branch also interviewed Belafonte several times for his best-selling and groundbreaking book trilogy, America in the King Years.
And Taylor Branch joins us now to discuss Belafonte and his lasting legacy. Taylor, I'm so glad to get to speak with you just because of your knowledge of the civil rights movement, because as Rob said earlier in the show, this man, this legend, was more than just the Day-O song.
Yes.
Was more than just an entertainer.
Yes.
He was very instrumental in the civil rights movement. Just reflect on his legacy.
Well, I think his legacy is much bigger in the United States than people think, because his behind-the-scenes role in the civil rights movement was enormous. But on top of that, he was an international figure, bringing first Caribbean rhythms and Caribbean music into the United States with his Calypso album, and then going overseas to Africa, making stars there, being a UNICEF ambassador for 25 years, one of the first, being the instrument, the push behind the We Are the World hit to fight world hunger. So he was an international figure, as well as what made him unique in the civil rights movement was that he was a radical voice and yet was so thoughtful that he adhered to nonviolence as the permanent solution, recognizing that violence, whether it's on January 6th or even Black Power, can't become a permanent solution to the problems that plague us. So he was a rare figure who had the fire of somebody who might be drawn to violence, but had the wisdom of somebody who knew better. And that's what made him such a good friend to Dr. King.
I didn't realize until reading so much about him since the news broke yesterday, just how close the two men were, how everything he did to help launch and finance the apparatus around the civil rights movement, and how personally close he was to Dr. King, even maintaining a life insurance policy on Dr. King to make sure that anything happened to him, which of course sadly did, that his family would get that money, in addition to privately helping the family as well. It's extraordinary. You mentioned We Are the World. Quincy Jones tweeted out yesterday, you were the standard bearer for what it meant to be an artist and an activist. And you realize all of his talents on stage was just a platform to get to the issue that he really cared about, which was equality and civil rights. It's remarkable because even at the height of his success, he still faced so much racism here in America, including a 1963 concert here in Atlanta, a tumultuous time. It was where Dr. King, one of their many stands against segregation. What were the successes and failures of that concert in '63, right where we are today in Atlanta?
Well, the success was that it drew an enormous audience. '63 was the breakthrough year, the pivotal year for all of American history in dealing the year of Birmingham, and led to the March on Washington, the Civil Rights Bill. But they were refused service in the hotel there in Atlanta at the Atlanta Cabana. It's not still there. And that was kind of an embarrassment to my hometown of Atlanta. That's where I was growing up. We were proud of the fact that we were too busy to hate, and yet we refused service to Harry Belafonte when he came to Atlanta. He had that activist streak for a long time. 40-something years ago, when I was trying to interview him, I wrote him many, many letters, and he refused to answer, I think 23 letters about why he should talk to me about his role inside the movement. And finally, my wife called one day and said there was a guy on the phone who claims to be Harry Belafonte. And it was him, And he said he had been reluctant to talk to me because if he talked to me, he would tell me the truth, which was that he was much more of an activist than it was safe for an entertainer to be. But he had decided to talk to me, and that began a friendship that lasted for the rest of his life. We became partners and friends.
You mentioned the March on Washington in 1963, and you even say Harry Belafonte organized what you call the celebrity plane. Who was on that, and why was that so significant for the event?
Well, it was significant because celebrities in those days, America was still really afraid of the March on Washington. I mean, most people don't realize it, but the city was shut down. Liquor stores were closed. The federal employees were told to stay home. There were paratroopers surrounding the city, so people were afraid. And bringing celebrities helped take a step toward what we think of the march as now, which was an optimistic, patriotic event. And Harry helped do that by bringing people like Marlon Brando and Paul Newman, and ironically Charlton Heston, who came there long before he became head of the NRA in his later life. He was then a big star, and Harry mobilized the Hollywood stars to help change people's mind that this might be something good instead of something scary.
Let me ask you two questions here. You said something so interesting a minute ago about he didn't want to talk to you because back then, at least, it was rare for a celebrity to also take on the activist role. Today, obviously, it's a lot more common, whether it's LeBron speaking out on social issues, Jon Stewart speaking out and being successful at getting legislation passed. We see it a lot more now than then. What were the dangers at the time, and do you think in many ways Harry Belafonte was the one that kind of broke through that barrier and made it okay for an entertainer to also put his politics out there?
I think he helped move it forward. What he was afraid of was people seeing back in those days that he wasn't just somebody who spoke out. I mean, he sponsored meetings to broker differences between Dr. King and Stokely Carmichael, people in the movement. Dr. King stayed with him in New York. He raised money. As you said, he had an insurance policy on him. As Harry famously said, he was an activist who became an artist instead of an artist who became an activist on the side. And he was afraid back then that by telling me his true role and confirming the stuff that I could see in the documents, that it would endanger his career. His career was always kind of on the edge. You probably saw that when Petula Clark touched his arm on television, that the sponsor of the show wanted them to redo it because a black man had touched, a white woman had touched a black man on national TV. So his early career was on the edge, particularly his movie roles in playing in Raisin in the Sun and Carmen Jones, playing characters in the movies that weren't step and fetch it type characters, was a precarious role for him. He was a pioneer in many respects.
And real quick, 20 seconds, tell us something about the man. We know the entertainer, we know the activist. Just a personal nugget about the kind of human being that he was that the general public may not know.
He could go through the fires of hell and still have wonderful gallows humor. We came out of a studio meeting when we got one of our projects turned down, and he looked at me and he said, "Taylor, this wouldn't have happened if you had trimmed your nose hair before we went in there." He said things like that all the time, which was a measure of his resilience.
That seems like the perfect note to end on. We got a little bit of everything about Harry, and it's a loss, but what a remarkable legacy. 96 well-lived years. Civil rights historian Taylor Branch, author of Parting the Waters, America in the King Years. Really an honor to talk to you, sir. Thanks so much for your work and for your time this morning.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back.